Hi there, everyone. I'm Rachel Peniston, Manager of Partnership Programs for the NFCC, and your host for today's Financial Facts Chat. If you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, thank you. We're really glad to have you with us today. And if you enjoy today's show, please do like, subscribe, comment, share. All of that helps us demonstrate your support for nonprofit financial education, and it keeps the channel going. So I'm here once again with Bruce McClary, our SVP of Communications. How's it going, Bruce?
Hey, Rachel, it's going great. A lot of really breaking news, really cool breaking news, exciting stuff happening in the moment as we're going live. So I don't think we've ever done breaking news before. I feel like we should have that big CNN graphic that comes up for everything, whether they're running a cat food ad or whether it's Wolf Blitzer.
Why not?
It's all breaking news.
We could add a countdown too while we're at it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, even better if it's like the BBC countdown with the beep and the thumpy music, like it's a rave. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. But no, seriously though, there's a lot of really important news that's happening in the moment. I mean, it's just hours old, so we can talk about what's fresh, what's new today, and so many people have a lot of questions. And in fact, the news about the stimulus package is so fresh that there's probably somebody riding a wobbly bike down Pennsylvania Avenue trying to get it to the president's desk. So that's how fresh this news really is. So we are in the moment here, paying attention to what matters the most. But that's good. And we also have some fun stuff to talk about later, I understand, because we're going to talk about our credit report challenge and some of the surprising and maybe not so surprising things that we encountered.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about your issue that you had. That was interesting. It reminded me of some of the frustrations I had when I first used that website, annualcreditreport.com, to get my free credit report. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But absolutely, first things first. And again, I posted this in the comments, but I want to mention this again. If you're watching live, please feel free to enter a question in the chat box. It doesn't have to be about the stimulus package. It could be just about general personal finance, repaying your bills, your credit cards, your loans, home ownership. It could be about issues you're having with rent, questions about student loan debt. Any of that, it's fair game. So don't feel like you have to, stay within the lines and just talk about the topic. But this is a pretty important topic. So without further ado, what do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the big question on everyone's mind, definitely on my mind. How big is the check? Who will get it? And when will it be arriving?
Yeah, so that's the question everybody wants to know. There was a lot of debate early on about the stimulus check and how much it would be. There was a lot of back and forth. It was a partisan issue, so there was a lot of debate going back and forth about how much is too much of a check, and what that means. So at this point. It looks like the bill passed with a $1,400 check going to people who make $80,000 or less. So that's individuals making $80,000 or less. Now, single parents earning $120,000 or less also qualify, and couples with household income of no more than $160,000 qualify as well. So there's different tiers of qualification in terms of getting that check. Now, the other question that's on people's minds is, when is this check going to get there? When are you going to receive the stimulus money? That's not as certain as the amounts and who qualifies. The president's probably going to sign the bill within 24 hours. If it takes longer than that, I would be surprised. They're probably short. They probably ran out of pens if that's the case, and had to run down to the CVS to get a pen. But the as soon as this is signed, they're going to move quickly to get the checks out to households. So I would probably guess that by the end of the month, checks are going to be dispersed, and those checks are going to be out there. But again, going back to how much and who qualifies, it's important to know that if you are an individual and you make $80,000 or less per year, then you're eligible for the $1,400 payment. If you're a single parent earning $120,000 or less, you also qualify. And again, couples with household incomes of less than $160,000 also qualify for the stimulus check. So there you have it. And when you get it, well, soon. That's the answer. Soon, probably before the end of the month. I'd be surprised if it took longer than that, but maybe not too surprised.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Bruce. Thank you for shedding some light on that one. Now, how about the continued relief for businesses and employees? What's going to happen with PPP? How about small businesses? And are there unemployment benefits included in this?
Yeah. So this sheds light on the fact that the stimulus package is not just about a check to people. The stimulus check. There's much more in this that's been packed in, and there are benefits for business owners. There are benefits for people who are unemployed, and all sorts of other provisions in here that relate to pandemic issues. So first of all, let me talk about the people who are unemployed, because I think it's important that we get the information out about that first. The federal unemployment payments, which are $300 a week, they're going to be extended, and they're going to be extended through September. In fact, September 6th, I believe. And then there's going to be just over $10,000 in jobless aid from last year. That's going to be tax-free for households with incomes less than $150,000. So that's really good news for people who were and are struggling with unemployment and are dealing with those kind of issues. There's also continued benefit for employers. The payroll protection plan. There's going to be more relief for businesses with the payroll protection plan there. So that's good. So there's a portion of this that's going to go to small businesses. There's a portion that's going to be available to those who are unemployed, which we just talked about. So it really is all encompassing in terms of help for businesses. But it's, there's a lot, again, that's packed in there with these provisions. But there's even beyond small businesses, there are aspects of this that will impact businesses, because there's $10 billion for infrastructure projects, which also can help employment as well. The bill includes about $30 billion for transit, which again might not be directly related to businesses or employees, but has implications for workers and businesses both. And then there's also some additional money. There's $350 billion for governments at various levels, state, local governments, as well as tribal councils, to provide more direct community level support for families and individuals in this stage of the pandemic recovery. So that's just a broad overview there. But again, I think it's important to know that this is the third, I believe this is the third stimulus. And, it's not clear as to what might happen next. There's some debate about if there's going to be a fourth stimulus, what that's going to look like. So I'll point back to what I mentioned in the link that I posted, that I shared, think about how you're going to take advantage of these benefits, because it's unclear as to whether some of these benefits are going to extend beyond what's been announced in the new bill, and what new benefits or provisions may come next. So treat it, it's like, what is it they say? Live in the moment and and just take full advantage of what you're being offered if you're in a situation of need. So that's, I guess that's the main point that I would make.
Good to know. Thanks, Bruce. Now, what are some of the other elements in this third round of stimulus that kind of stand out to you that maybe you haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, well, there's something really interesting in here that I don't think is getting a lot of attention, but it's certainly something noteworthy. And that's the adjustment to the child tax credit. So there are a lot of families with kids struggling with the consequences of budgeting in times where their income has been cut, or they're dealing with other consequences of COVID. So with the child tax credit, the stimulus package provides $300 per child for children, each child age 5 and under, and then $250 per child for children ages 6 to 17. So that increases the value of that child tax credit. And this is one of the things that every tax year I think about, because it's one of the most underutilized benefits, I think, when people are filing taxes. And even though there are a lot of people that do take advantage of it, I think there are also many people that don't realize either how to take advantage of it or whether they qualify. So this just calls attention to a benefit for parents to take advantage of, to make their dollars go further. So I would, I think I would call out the child tax credit as a highlight of the other category here that stands out and will be helpful to a lot of the families who are struggling financially. There's been, I would say there's been a lot of attention on some of the infrastructure things and other provisions that were packed into this bill. But I think the things that are most directly impactful to households, to consumers, are the stimulus check itself, the tax credits specifically, and the unemployment benefits, because that leads to money in your pocket directly. Some of these other things are, certainly there's reason to point out the value of those benefits, like the infrastructure, transportation, helping people get to and from jobs they may not have yet, or be able to get back out into the workforce. Even the vaccine distribution portion of the stimulus, the money that's going to actually go and help get shots in arms, that's also important for reopening the economy as well, but it's not direct dollars into the pocket of an individual. So I think, the most important things we talked about here, for people who may be viewing and wondering what lifeline is going to be most directly affecting them, I think those are the things that stand out: the check, the tax credit, the child tax credits, and of course the unemployment benefits, as well as PPP. I mean, if you're a business owner, that's going to also be dollars, money in hand that will help you continue the success of your business and keeping things on track, so that as the recovery continues, you can get back in the swing of things. But those are other things. The other thing I wanted to mention too, there were housing provisions here that I didn't specifically call out, but there is money in the stimulus package for renters who are struggling, and as well as homeowners. So I think that's the amount of the stimulus package that's dedicated to that. It's in the billions. I don't have the specific amount, but it's a substantial amount of money to help people who are struggling to keep a roof over their head, whether they are homeowners or renters. So that's important to point out as well, because we at the NFCC have just recently launched the Renter Advantage program in coordination, in working with HPN. and with support of Wells Fargo, the Wells Fargo Foundation. So it's very important to know about the lifelines that are available for renters, especially who are going to be dealing with the prospect of a very, very difficult time when some of these eviction provisions disappear, eviction protections disappear. There's even talk about the fact that landlords may be able to turn around and sue their tenants for back rent that's unpaid that isn't waived because of state regulations or state protections. And
Wow.
it could get really messy and really ugly. So programs like Renter Advantage that the NFCC is launching in specific regions with HPN gives property managers and tenants the ability to come together and find and agree on a workout plan that pays any back rent that may be due, but also allows people to stay in their housing affordably, and it removes that prospect of going straight to court and ending up with a lot worse situation than you may already have. But that's just one example of a program. And, I believe very strongly that programs like that are going to be needed to supplement some of the other forms of housing assistance that may be available through the stimulus package and others, because renters are going to really struggle. And that's not to say the property managers aren't going to struggle as well. I mean, they haven't been able to collect rent in a lot of situations, and that for mom and pop landlords, that's their income. They count on that. They count on the renter so they can put food on their table and keep ownership of their property. So a lot of people affected here. And then, of course, homeowners themselves also affected. So housing is a very important thing, and I didn't want to bypass that issue in talking about the other category. But, child tax credits, I think for me, are a little bit of the headline of the other category, because it is, again, it's tax season right now. You can file your taxes. You should be thinking about your taxes. And so that tax credit is very timely. There's another question that I got the other day about what people should do if they didn't receive a stimulus check, and they should have in the previous rounds. It's not clear at this moment exactly how that's going to be handled, but I understand that it's likely that there'll be some kind of a tax credit available to individuals who can report that they didn't cash or receive a stimulus check, so that they can still benefit in some way during this tax filing season for a check they may not have received in the previous year. And I know a couple of people directly in that situation. So that's another question that comes up about the stimulus, is what happens if I don't get the check. But again, I posted a link in the comments earlier about how to make the most of your stimulus. It's an older blog from the NFCC website, because I think it was posted during the first round of stimulus checks, which, if you can believe it, it was back in, what was that, April of last year?
Yeah.
So it seems like a million years ago. But the advice specific to how to make the most of your stimulus check it still applies. So the basics. So I would recommend reading that, checking it out, following the link that I posted in the comments section. And if you are having difficulty that managing your credit card payments, managing your loan payments, your mortgage, and your stimulus check just isn't going to be enough to cut it, and maybe you're trying to find help through other community resources and you're just not having any luck, it's a good idea to go ahead and reach out and talk to a nonprofit credit counselor who can provide some guidance about making the most of your budget, and possibly connect you to some resources where you could receive the kind of help you're looking for, and also get advice on how to keep your financial obligations on track. One of the things that we also talked about in previous live streams was the fact that the lifelines that were available from the major creditors early on, that were COVID specific that allowed people to skip payments, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months of payments without penalty. Some of those programs have gone away. So some of those options are off the menu. However, I'll say this, as I've said before, you don't know what's available unless you ask. And so I encourage you not to assume that there are no temporary hardship options available through your creditors, and instead have a conversation with your creditor and ask them if there are any temporary hardship programs that are available for you based on the circumstances you're facing. Because maybe you didn't have to use those last April or through the summer, but now you're in a situation where you do. Layoffs are continuing. In fact, it wasn't that long ago. It was only a few weeks ago where one of the airlines laid off a ton of people. So these were people that had jobs through the worst of the pandemic. And now, just when we think we're in the clear, they're finding out that they're getting a pink slip and they're having to deal with some serious hardships. So, for people that may be in a similar situation, I would say, call up your creditor, talk to your lender, see if programs are available for temporary hardship while you get your footing, while you figure out what you're going to do with the stimulus benefits that you're receiving in this round, so that you can get back on your feet without making your situation any worse than it needs to be.
Definitely some good advice there. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you. And that's basically it. Those are the headlines on this. And I'm going to share one more link. And it is kind of a live update link, but they've been keeping this thread going all day just on the updates of what's happening with the stimulus. Is it signed yet? Is the bill now a law? I think we talked about Schoolhouse Rock earlier today and how they so this is a good example to go back to look at that. But the link I just posted is a New York Times live blog, and it's showing updates moment by moment as to what the status is. But the bill passed, yay! Now it's again, it's on that wobbly bicycle down Pennsylvania Avenue from the Capitol to the White House. So we'll stay tuned, keep track of that blog, and watch your evening news tonight to see what happens next.
Thanks, Bruce. I'll check that link out later too. I haven't seen that one yet. I think we should go ahead and give everyone an update on our most recent personal finance challenge, which was to check our credit reports.
Yes, and where did we go to check it?
The website is annualcreditreport.com, right?
Yes, annualcreditreport.com is the website. And just for everybody's benefit, in the comment section, I will post the link. So if anybody's interested in doing what we did and hearing about our experience, you in the audience, you can go and get your report for free as well. And you can do it on a weekly basis. So the reason we did this is because the 3 major credit reporting agencies announced, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I'm losing track of time. But they announced recently that they're extending the weekly access for free credit reports through until 2022. So it's the rest of this year into the early part of next year, which is awesome. So we decided we would go and see what we would experience when we went in to pull our credit reports, because it has been it's been a while for me. Not going to say how long, but
me too. I haven't done it.
Yeah. So it was high time to go in and look. So, so let's compare notes. Let's see, what are we looking for first?
So I think we should start maybe with how to request the reports. How did we find the overall website experience? What was easy? What was kind of confusing about it? Do you want to begin?
Why don't you go ahead? I want to hear about your experience with the annualcreditreport.com piece of this. And of course, then I'll share my experience. Then we can talk a little bit maybe about what your experience was with each of the different bureaus.
Yeah. So I had no trouble finding the website. I went directly to the website just for safety reasons. I didn't want to click on links or anything. So I navigated right to that site. And I found it was pretty easy. You basically just sort of click get my reports, and it gives you an option which one you'd like to look at, or the option to view all three.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The whole process of getting there and getting to that stage wasn't bad at all. That was easy.
Yeah, and it was really super straightforward too. I like the presentation, the layout of their website, because it's really, they just have those like 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 3 steps, and it's that little line.
Yeah.
So it did, at least visually, it was very intuitive as to where to go and what to click at that stage.
The issue that I encountered happened when I tried to actually access one of my reports. So I was luckily able to access 2 of my credit reports, and no problem. I actually saved them as PDFs on my laptop, so I could go back and look at them closer later. But the third one I could not get access to. And the reason was because they ask you a number of security questions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the questions have to do with, different lines of credit that you've had access to in the past, some of which may have been gone for years. In my case, they were asking me about my different student loan accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a student loan since 2012.
Wow.
And
so it's really a brain teaser.
It's my own data, and I didn't know the answer to it.
Yeah. Did you get any weird questions though in that part that you thought, well, why are they asking me this?
Yeah. Some of the questions, they'll have, if you look closely, they'll have an answer that says none of these. And so they actually do throw in some trick questions in there, to try to throw you off. And so with some of those, I was like, none of these really apply to me. I hope that I'm doing the right thing here by just saying, NA or none of these as the option. That kind of was odd, I found.
Yeah, it was, the weirdest question I got through that whole process was when I was answering the security questions. Well, there was one that was similar to your student loan question. It was a question about my mortgage payment on a mortgage that I had years ago. I mean, It was so long ago, and I was struggling to think, like, what the heck was my mortgage payment? It gave me these ranges, but I couldn't, and they were all really close. It's like, how do I know which of these is going to be correct? So I answered it, and it turned out to be wrong. So they shot me 2 new questions.
Okay.
In place of that. But the other weird thing about that is one of the 2 questions, it wasn't even about me. It was asking me, I'm trying to present this in a way that doesn't disclose any sensitive information, but it was asking me what city my sister owns property in.
That's so strange.
It has nothing to do with anything on my credit report.
That's kind of creepy, isn't it?
It listed her name. And I'm thinking, wow, this is weird. And it made me worry for a second. Is her stuff showing up on my credit report? Like, why? First of all, how do they even know that I'm related to her? Because it's her last name is not the same. It's her married last name. So it was really weird. That was a really oddball, out of left field, kind of bizarre question that came through. So, but I guess the lesson here is anybody going to annualcreditreport.com, you better be prepared with a little bit of knowledge of your financial history as it reports to previous credit bureaus, because the answers to those questions are going to get you access to your credit report.
Yeah. And even if you can't get access to all 3 at the same time, you could just do what I did and start with 2. And then, I'm now working on getting access to the 3rd. I think what I will end up doing is I'll wait a week and I'll try again on the website, and I will very carefully look through my other reports to see what those loan information what the name of the loan was so that I can
Yeah.
try to answer that question.
That's interesting. That's really weird. Yeah, it's good that you can still pursue access, following that experience, just, taking a step back from the process and coming back to it. I was able to get all three. But one of the things that I noticed is you have to be really careful and pay attention to which one you're looking at and which tab's going to open where and all of that. And then, of course, it gives you the option to download the information. If you're downloading the report, just be sure that you keep it in a very secure place.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. If you're using a library computer or a public computer somewhere, you probably do not want. In fact, I would not recommend that anybody go to annualcreditreport.com on a computer that is going to be accessed by a lot of other people. Probably better to do it on a computer that is your own and that you have access to and is password protected.
Yeah, I would think so too, because there is a lot of personal information on all of those reports, and you would hate to have somebody else, with a sort of nefarious purpose having access to that. So definitely safeguard those.
So I know we're getting close to time here, but what was there anything that shocked you or surprised you when you were looking at the details on your credit reports? Did you see any errors? Anything that looked out of place that needs to be disputed?
Well, I'm quite lucky because in addition to getting my credit reports, I actually have access to a credit monitoring, an ID monitoring site. So I think that may be part of the reason I haven't looked up my reports in the past. So I've kind of notified if there's a change immediately without having to check the report. That being said, I should say, so because of that, there weren't very many surprises. Everything, for the most part, looked okay. There was one thing that was very odd, and it only was on one of my credit reports. I found a record of myself with a misspelled last name. And I tried to make the correction. So they had, records of me and they had my name, and one of them is completely misspelled. The name is just wrong. And so I think it was probably just a typo that someone must have made at some point when they were entering my data. But I tried to have that corrected on the website. You can make a dispute on the website. For name issues, they will not let you do that on the website. You actually have to call in. So I haven't done that yet, but I did take note of the phone number, and I'm going to set aside a time to call.
Yeah, and that's most likely. I know this is something that's commonly encountered on, you'll see address like typos in street names and things. Typos are common in the personal identification area. And a lot of times the reason why is because when you apply for a loan or line of credit, you're talking, especially if you're talking to someone, or if they have to key in information that you're telling them, there are all kinds of opportunities for them to misspell things. But that information then ends up updating your credit file when the bank or lender communicates with the credit reporting agency. And sometimes that's how it ends up impacting you there. But one of the things, speaking of disputing stuff, that I thought was really cool is the layout of some of the credit reports. Not every credit reporting agency is the same. And I'm just going to call out TransUnion here, because TransUnion had a really cool layout format where they had, I think it was TransUnion, but they had the dispute button in each section. Like there was a button right there. Like if you had a problem with that account, you could click that button and go right into reporting, that the information is inaccurate. So I thought that was really good visibility there. And of course, I liked the layout that they had. But the other thing that I thought the credit bureaus did that was different in how it was presented, but is helpful, is there was the one, and I also think this was TransUnion, but the Know Your Rights section of the credit report, where it had all of that information, which is a bit overwhelming, but it's important to know. And it was all right there on the credit report, so that you know exactly what your rights are, what information should be reported, what shouldn't. So not only is there the easy access to dispute online, but also the Know Your Rights. So I thought that was kind of cool there as well. But overall, there wasn't so much of a difference between what was reported on the credit reports that I saw for me. All the information looked exactly the same. The accounts were listed the same. Inquiries were generally similar.
Yeah,
And there
me
was one of
too.
the bureaus that split out hard inquiries and soft inquiries. So you could see, who was checking you for pre-approval or whatever, and who was checking you like a hard pull on your credit. So
Right.
good stuff there. But are you going to take advantage of the weekly access from now on?
I don't think I'll check weekly, but this experience has taught me that I really should be checking more often, because, I did find an error. So it does pop up, and I definitely want to resolve those type of things in a timely manner. And, I still haven't accessed one of them. So I'm definitely going to try next week and try to get access to that one at least.
Awesome. And the one thing I want to point out here, because I just had a discussion in another meeting about this, they make the dispute process really easy to access. All of them do. TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. And there's been an issue with some credit repair companies that are using tactics that are not exactly above board, I'll just say. And it's not all of them, but it's some of them. So it's really careful. It's really important to be careful if you're going to think about going to a credit repair company. These credit clinics that are advertising, there are just a lot of areas to be concerned about how some of them are trying to clear up what is actually legitimate information on your credit report, which shouldn't be removed and can't be removed. So there's a lot that you can do here that you can do yourself, and it's easy to do. So I would just encourage people to take the do-it-yourself route. But the other thing too is that during the pandemic, the credit bureaus have been overwhelmed in many cases by the volume of disputes. And there's a clear guideline as to how long it's supposed to take the credit bureaus to resolve your dispute once you file it. And a statement was released last year saying that the guidelines are going to be relaxed a little bit to give the credit bureaus the ability to resolve your dispute and take a little bit more time because they are overwhelmed by the volume of disputes. And just to, not in defense of the credit bureaus, but certainly to add context to this, a lot of the reason for the volume is because the data furnishers, the creditors, the lenders, may not have been reporting accurate information about temporary account adjustments that were made to accommodate temporary hardship programs where people were allowed to skip payments without penalty. And because of that, people were disputing information that was harmful to them and counter to the agreements that were made. And there were, it's not that every lender or creditor was guilty of this. I'm not saying that at all, but it just means that there was enough of an uptick in mistakes there. And the other issue that was compounding this is that some of the less than above board credit clinics were flooding the system with what I would say are baseless disputes, trying to get legitimate information removed from their clients' credit reports. And because they were flooding the credit bureaus, it was jamming up the pipeline and using up all the resources that the credit bureaus otherwise have available to help you and me when we have a legitimate dispute, just like the name issue or an account issue. So just be mindful it might take longer for the credit bureau to assist you than is otherwise expected by the regulations that are in place for how long they have to clear things up. But hopefully it won't take too long.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can provide an update if I get on the phone with them soon.
Yeah, that would be helpful. That'd be good. Well, thank you, Rachel. So what's our challenge for next time?
So I think this is going to be a tough one. This is something I've seen show up as a piece of personal finance advice, a no spend weekend. So for a whole weekend from Saturday to Sunday, we're not going to spend any money at all, cash, credit card, nothing. And And I think the purpose of this type of an activity is to make you more cognizant of the little things that you're spending money on that maybe you don't realize. If you go out and get a coffee, if you're going out and buying food, or, spending money shopping, or even online shopping, all of those things are, little ways that your spending habits add up over time.
So let's define weekend so that I don't start freaking out. So we're not including Friday night. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So Friday night, I can go and spend like crazy within my budget. But Saturday and Sunday are the 2 days that we're not going to spend.
That's right. So let's see. Today's the 10th. So that's going to be the 13th and the 14th of March that we're
Lucky
not going to
13.
spend.
Okay, good. And the good news is I don't have any travel or anything crazy this weekend. So I am going to be laser focused on not dropping $1.
Yeah.
The good news is I already did grocery shopping, so that's out of the way. So I'm good for at least a couple of weeks. I'm good there. So it's just going to be a matter of focusing on things that I can do for free. Wow. Okay. Yeah. But
that's tough.
Well, the fortunate thing is that you and I live in a metro area where I would say, compared to almost every other place in the United States of America, we probably have more options for free things to do here than anywhere else.
I would think so. I don't know if there's another place that has this kind of free options that we have. So we are lucky in that sense.
Yeah, because we've got a lot of free parks. We've got a lot of free outdoor recreation, even the venues that are open indoors, because many of them are taxpayer funded, like the museums and things like that, the ones that may be open. I don't know which ones are open or not, but those are free. So there's just so much to do around here that is free that would be otherwise a cost item in other cities. So I'm aware of that. So I think we're getting off easy with this no spend weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it's going to be tough though. So I wish you luck, Bruce.
Thank you. And we're on the honor system. So if we stumble at all, if anything happens, if we accidentally go buy a candy bar or something, then
we'll report it honestly.
We have to show the wrapper as evidence. That's what we got to do. Well, all right. Well, thanks, Rachel. This was good. This was fun. It was a little bit longer than usual, but we had a lot of breaking news at the front end about the stimulus package. So good stuff. So folks, follow, comment, please comment, and stay tuned again next week around about this time. We'll be back at you with the results of our no spend weekend, and we'll take some of your questions next week as well.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.